Hey guys, Cody with CJC Off-Road. Today we're going to be highlighting a 2014 and newer Ram 2500. In my mind, this is actually one of my favorite builds that we've done probably in the last 6 months. It is a very sleeper-esque build. This again is just a 2014 to 2018 Ram. It's going to look like just like any other truck rolling around towns on 37s with 17s. However, this truck is an off-road monster. This truck is riding on the Carli suspension 3¼ inch Dominator system. Now what that means, there's a lot of numbers a lot of times in these product descriptions. There's a 3¼ inch lift for this 2014 to 2018 Ram 2500. The front of the truck is going to come up 3¼ inches. The rear of the truck is going to come 1 inch. So it's going to have a level stance to it, and it is going to be riding on the Dominator 3.0 shock package. Now, those of you who are just starting to look at these systems, the Dominator shock package is a King 3.0 racing shock, so essentially this truck can't keep up with a side-by-side off-road. However, you're just overall stoked with how this truck looked, not looking for off-road performance. Any of the 3¼ inch lift systems that Carli Suspension offers for this truck is going to have the same stance as this truck, just with different shock packages, right? So if you're using the truck as a commuter, you can get what they call the commuter system, and still have your truck look exactly like this one. Or if the commuter system is more in your budget, however the end result for you wants to be an off-road hard charging rig, that is where you can start with the commuter system. Down the line, just change out the shock package and that will land you at the final destination of this build. So it's a very cool option, just how modular these Carli suspension systems are. The real secret sauce of any Carli suspension system is going to be the tuned spring and shock combination that still to this day is essentially unchallenged in the market. Now again, this setup is going to be running the King 3.0 shock, so this truck is going to be able to charge extremely hard off-road. So you'll also notice in this video, this truck has the Thurn fabrication axle truss. What that is essentially reinforcement for the front axle. So if this truck ever gets jumped, even if his goal is not to jump it, accidentally hits an off-road section a little too fast, catches some front end air, the axle bottoms out. When it hits those bump stops, traditionally, the Ram axles will tend to bend and you'll see a smile. That is a bent housing. The axle truss is going to prevent that, so it's definitely cheap insurance compared to replacing the front axle, etc. So those of you who are going off-road, still don't ever really plan on jumping your truck, but do get into some spirited driving, the axle truss is a really cool option for you. Now, rounding out the front end components, we went with the Apex chassis steering linkage. In typical Ram fashion, the truck's previous OEM steering linkage was blown out. You can also run the Carli suspension high and low mount steering stabilizers, as this customer did, helping keep control of these big 37s. Lastly, the Carli suspension differential guard. Cheap insurance if you're gonna be running one of these trucks off-road. You're not gonna punch a hole in that stamped steel factory cover. Now, if you are looking at the two different truss options that we offer, you're gonna see Thurn fabrication and Carli suspension. The Thurn fabrication option is at a lower price point, as well as much simpler to install. So the Carli kit is gonna be a fully plated box structure. So unless you do have a ton of fabrication skill, you're probably going to pay a sizable bill at a fabrication shop, whereas the Thurn option might be a little bit easier to install for those guys doing it in your driveway or for shops with only so much experience in fabrication and things like that. Now, speaking of Thurn fabrication, this truck also got the Thurn fabrication rear track bar. It is going to cut down the rear end wag in half on these 2500 trucks. So whether you're going to push it hard off-road or you're going to extremely load the truck down with either camping gear, trailer, etc., and you're going to cycle that rear end a lot, the Thurn rear track bar is going to dramatically cut down the amount of rear wag that these 2500 trucks get. You'll also notice that this is all paired up with the Banks diff cover, a very cool option. They have a ton of videos on their channel explaining why that is a cool part. There are no compatibility issues, whether the Carli kit or the Thurn rear track bar with that diff cover. Moving on to the wheel and tire package, it is a 37-1250 Nitto Ridge Grappler running on a 17-inch Method 315. Now, one thing I do want to note, this is not the CJC 315 with that positive offset to allow minimal trimming. It is the zero offset variation, so we did have to do more trimming in the front of this truck. However, the reason we did that, the Dominator shock package outboards the rear shocks due to the fact that a 3.0 shock cannot fit in the factory mounts. It's just too big of a shock. And so when you outboard that, we also need to outboard the wheel and tire package just a little bit so there's no contact. Now, rounding out this build at the front bumper, you're gonna notice the CJC Off-Road intercooler guard. We're gonna get rid of that ugly plastic valence, gain a little bit of clearance along with a very trick intercooler guard that's been TIG welded. It's aluminum, so It's gonna manage to not allow anything to hit your intercooler, sticks, rocks, things like that. Yet again, bring that overall approach angle as well as clean up the aesthetics of the truck. Lastly, for lighting, this customer opted for the Baja Designs fog light package, 4 squadron lights, which actually for their size are the brightest in that space. So this customer is actually gonna have a ton of light, and for most purposes, won't outrun those four squadrons in most situations. So he's got, you know, a ton of light, a ton of suspension, just making for a very cool utilitarian rig. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below, shoot us an email, give us a phone call. We'd be happy to walk you through any questions you may have about this system or similar systems. If your local shop has never worked with us or Carli Suspension before, give us a shout. We can get quality parts in their hands and get cool builds out there for you guys, even if they're not being built at our shop. So thank you guys for watching. We'll see you guys on the next one.